Welcome, everyone, to another edition of 10-Minute Misconduct, where we talk about all of the things going on in Leafs land, the past couple games, looking ahead, and some of the bigger stories going on with the team at the moment. The Leafs just lost to the last place Montreal Canadiens 5-2 and completely embarrassed themselves. But lighten up, everyone. It happens. Great teams lose to bad teams once in a while. You're going to have a couple stinkers throughout the year. I'm more concerned about the overall defensive play of the team. I know last week's episode we discussed how, they're not as bad defensively as everyone suggests. And then they completely have two stinkers against the Blues and now the Habs defensively. Let's start with one of the major problems, Frankie. Jake Muzzin, who got hurt again today. Word is that he's going to be staying in Quebec overnight until he's reevaluated in the morning. Looks like another concussion. He just got back from a concussion. And this is to go along with the fact that he just hasn't had a great year at all. People wanted, or people earlier were suggesting that Justin Hall was a big problem, and he is. But Jake Muzzin has not been the Jake Muzzin that we've become accustomed to. He was their best defenseman last year, and he's been nothing even close to that. Can this team be successful without a healthy and playing well Jake Muzzin?
I see a lot of comparison with Jake Muzzin and Dion Phaneuf, and I don't mean the player. I mean where they're slotted in the lineup. We used to get on Phaneuf's, on the Phaneuf bandwagon pretty hard on him, only because he was slotted as the number one defenseman, and they were awful. Let's just put it that the team was awful, but the team put him in a position to fail. I see a lot of comparisons with that and Jake Muzzin, because right now he's logging a lot of minutes and playing a lot of situations. In fact, he was actually quarterbacking the second power play unit tonight. As crazy as that sounds, he was on the second power play unit tonight. And again, putting him in a position to fail, because it seems like whether it's injuries, whether it's the mental side of the game, he can't handle it right now. And I think the best thing for him to do with this injury, if they can extend it to the LTIR and just let him take some time off, because obviously it looks like they're going to make the playoffs. Now is the time for Rasmus Sandin to solidify himself as that second line left-handed defenseman. Right now's the audition. And to answer your question, sorry it took a long, Joe, but to answer your question, I can't answer that until I see what this defense looks like post deadline, because depending on who they bring in, Muzzin could be coming back in sheltered minutes and playing in the third line as a left-handed defenseman versus in the top four. Because this is kind of Sandin's, this will show Dubas, what do I need to go out and get? Do I need to go out and get another right-handed defenseman to play in that third line or that second line, right? So I think the type of game that Muzzin plays, they got to cut down his minutes down to maybe into that Dermott, that Dermott style of ice time, 14 to 16 minutes type of thing, because can't do it anymore. Or he needs he needs just to heal, right? I think that'll also help on the mental side of the game as well, playing with a puck moving defenseman versus a guy like Hall who treats the puck like a grenade. So
do you think it's more age related or more injury related this year? Because it was only like a year ago, he was still Jake Muzzin.
The
Jake
thing
Muzzin
about
we
defense,
know.
Joe, the thing about defense, I think has less to do about age than it does about wear and tear, because you can play defense at a pretty good age. I know there's not many defensemen out there his age, but I look at a guy like Mark Giordano, who can still play the game at an effective style at his age as well. I'm not saying it's not about it, maybe a little bit, but I'm more concerned about the wear and tear with him. How many concussions he's had this year, the back, the knees. And it's not fair to the guy that you keep throwing it on his plate. You got to move him down the lineup. And it's going to be easier said than done for Dubas. But if you're not going to be successful, we talk about it all the time, running the same defense core out year in and year out and expecting different results. They're getting older. They're getting worse, unfortunately. But they may have a safety net here with Sandin. I think Sandin's the key to all of this, to be quite honest with you.
In order for him to be the key in all this, though, Frank, they got to stop scratching him because he was scratched tonight, a healthy scratch.
Unbelievable.
And I think this is the last time we're going to see that.
Yeah. I think this was, some people say it was cap reasons. Some people say he had a tough game against St. Louis. Like, listen, that defense, the whole defense had a tough game against St. Louis. I think this was a night where they're saying they're playing the worst team in the NHL. They should have won with a third pairing of Dermott and Hall. Wasn't the case. It was a showcase of Dermott and Hall. Wasn't the case. And you're right. This is the last time it ever has to happen. It's inexcusable for it to be cap reasons. If it's behavior or if it's play and they want to get him up there in the box to watch, fine, I get it. I'll live with that if they keep it consistent, because they've done it with Dermott, they've done it with Liljegren, they've done it with Hall, and now they've done it with Sandin. That's fine. But if you're scratching 4 or 6 defense for a learning, for learning purposes, this team ain't going anywhere. So they need Sandin to be that third option, which goes to show you just how far they have to go if they want to do some damage in the playoffs.
Yeah. What we know about concussions is that when you have successive concussions in a short period of time, it's really not good. And that's what Jake's gone through after tonight. Would you LTIR him for the rest of the season to get him right? Knowing, though, that he's not going to get to tune up for the playoffs. You're going to throw him right into the playoffs, into the lines then afterwards.
Yeah, I think so.
But then you get to take advantage of the LTIR rule, which other teams are all doing. So
they can win without Jake Muzzin.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the regular season.
Yes. They've already solidified a playoff spot. So
all right.
It doesn't bother me.
All right. Let's move forward to the second thing that is a big concern to me, and that is the second line for the Leafs. Of late, it feels like they're too much of a one-line team. You get the Matthews-Marner line and Bunting line. They go out, they spend a minute in the other team's zone. Great forecheck, great puck possession. They get off the ice. JT's line comes on, and it's not anything close like that. We talked about it last week, how they were getting outscored at 5-on-5. They finally got off the schneid against St. Louis, scored 2 goals, but they also allowed the last 2 goals that ended up winning the game for St. Louis. They were terrible tonight. Awful. At what point do we start putting this more on the shoulders of JT and Willie as opposed to, well, we need to get them another left winger to help them? Because those 2 guys should be good enough to carry play on their own, which they were doing earlier in the year, but they've really struggled of late.
See, the risk you run here is if you move somebody else onto that second line, then you're changing the third line, which then probably has an effect on the fourth line, which is fine. Like, now's your time to experiment if you really want to. But I want to say this in a way where it's not negative. I feel bad for Tavares in a way because he's been a point of game player, has been since he's put the uniform on. That's good. It is. A point of game is it's what you expect from him.
Yeah.
But again, you look at that contract and it's like, it's good, but it's not good enough. You want to be able to see that he's making a difference in games where they need that boost. And I think Nylander's a little bit different because for the most part of this year, he's been, quote unquote, one of, if not the best, their best forward at times, when Marner was slumping and, or when he was hurt, and Nylander was picking up the slack, and that's fine. And he's been their playoff guy the last couple of years. And I really don't have an issue with with Nylander. It's just that Tavares thing is he's just there. Yeah, he'll pick up a secondary assist, but he's just there. And the points are not good enough for me anymore. I, personally, it's going to sound crazy. I wouldn't mind seeing penalty kill. And the reason why, it gets him more into you're telling me John Tavares can't kill a penalty? Of course he can. He's big, he's strong, he wins faceoffs. To me, he's an ideal penalty killer. That would get him in the game more. That would get his ice time up. He only played 15:04 tonight. That's a season. It's a season low for him, right? And again, I'll go to the third guy on that line. Alex Kerfoot is a good player. He's a good player. He is not a top 6 player. Alex Kerfoot is a very good, solid defensive player, making $4.5 million. So you
3.5.
Sorry, 3.5. Sorry, my fault. $3.5 million. Is that third line numbers? Maybe, maybe not. So now you're asking more of a guy who's had a very good year this year, but he's not a driver on that line. Who takes that spot? They've tried Mikheyev. Meh. They've tried, they've tried putting Nylander up with Matthews and Marner at times. For some reason, it's just they haven't given it a long look. To me, the answer is right in your lineup. And I'd love to see Nylander switch over to the left side and move Kasha onto the second line as a right winger. There's your puck pursuit guy. There's the guy with a little bit more offensive flair than Kerfoot does, a little bit more tougher into the corners. I wouldn't say versatile because, Kasha is prone to his injuries, but Kerfoot's always been okay on that third line. I don't see an issue with a shutdown line of Kampf, Mikheyev, and Kerfoot. Nothing wrong with that. Or put him in the middle. Just now's their time to experiment. And when they did that with Bunting, he clicked on the top line. There's no reason why they can't try that. For me, it's an ideal second line. But this also shows me that they desperately need a top 6 forward for that second line. I think Tavares has always been known as the guy to make people money, like Josh Bailey, Matt Molson, Kyle Okposo. Right? Now it's time for someone else to help Tavares earn that money. And I think I'd love to see them take a swing at JT Miller. I think he would be perfect on that top 6 with Tavares and Nylander. I know this is NHL 22 GM mode here, but I think they can pull it off. You got that first round pick. You got a prospect to use. That would be a perfect guy who's also signed for next year, who I think it just fits everything what they're looking for. So.
And you got the LTIR money that we spoke about now to acquire him and not have to shed that much salary also.
Why not?
Yeah, I would love to see JT Miller here. I think there's going to be a lot of teams in line for his service. And Vancouver may even want to keep him. Who knows? Last thing, the goaltending for the Leafs hasn't been the greatest of late. Jack Hamill's played a little bit better of late, but even against St. Louis, I think there was a couple that you would have liked to have back. Mrazek made some really nice saves today. The Leafs really hung him out to dry, but he let in a couple stinkers as well. Is the level of concern of the Leafs goaltending starting to rise, or is this just a result of their poor defensive play of late?
Yeah, I think it's more the defensive play. Let's not turn a blind eye here. Mrazek let some really odd goals.
Terrible,
yeah. Overplayed. But then he comes up with a save of the year candidate, right? And,
yep.
Same with Campbell. Campbell went through a 50 save performance against Pittsburgh, and then again a head scratcher against St. Louis. So I think Kyle Dubas is going to have a lot to learn about his goaltending in the next little while, because if Campbell is your guy and you think you want to pay him as your guy, you might want to see what he does as the guy. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is he's going to have to start playing. Yeah, it would be great to see a split, but with Mrazek struggling and Campbell, seemingly being the guy, he may have to get some games in here to start getting that ball and rolling the team, getting some confidence here. Mrazek's had a chance to kind of take over the net. I wouldn't say, full time, but getting more starts. And it's coming to the point where, you're watching this as a fan and you're thinking, what's he going to let in tonight? And that's not a good feeling. And if we're feeling that, what's the team feeling in front of them? Because, they're not dumb. They know who's in the net. Teams do play a little bit different when different goalies are the backups in the net. And I think they're just absolutely getting killed off the rush right now. And I think that's one thing that is just scaring the hell out of me. And I don't feel confident having Mrazek back in there right now, dealing with odd man rushes. Pretty scary right now, regardless of the goaltending. No, I think Campbell's got to start taking the ball and running with it a little bit more now.
All right. Lastly, They've got Columbus tomorrow. By the time this drops, that game might be already played. They've got Minnesota, a big test at home on Thursday, and they've got Detroit on the road on Saturday. What are you going to be looking for in these upcoming games from the team?
Consistency again. I look at Minnesota and Detroit, again, two teams that are pretty quick, pretty decent transition teams. Obviously, Minnesota better than Detroit, but Detroit plays more of that up-tempo game now with a lot of those young guys in the lineup. And they've pushed Toronto in both games this year. The Columbus game for me is, again, it's a wash. It's going to be a boring game in Toronto on a Tuesday night. So it's going to be really
it's in
hard.
Columbus.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. In Columbus. Sorry. It's a Tuesday night game in Columbus. My question is, what's the pushback going to be tomorrow, against Columbus? Is there going to be lineup changes? Is there going to be actual line rush changes? Who's coming in on the defense? Is Lybushkin going to be playing? Not that we're thinking he's going to be the answer to the problems, but you're going to be conceivably seeing two new defensemen in tomorrow night. I just want to see a response. I could care less about the score, to be quite honest with you. I just want to see a response. That means if it's a fight, if it's hits, if it's a good start, I just want to see what they got coming back. The Minnesota game is one that intrigues me the most because I think there's some payback coming for that game. If we remember from last time with Foligno and Campbell and stuff. So I want to see what happens there. That'll be the most interesting game of the week for me.
I don't think there's any payback. Payback doesn't exist for this team. they need to grow a little bit of a backbone. That game against Minnesota, the last time they played, was one of the best games of the year. So I'm really looking forward to Thursday's game. That's a top team, and it's a good measuring stick game. Anytime you could play a team that's quick and fast and big and all that's a test that you can measure yourself against. We didn't touch upon the Ritchie Lybushkin trade too much because I think it's pretty clearly a win for the team, right? You got out of that second year of the Ritchie contract, which is the most important thing. And you actually got a positive asset out of it in a defenseman that you can plug into the lineup who brings a lot of what you don't already have, especially with Muzzin being hurt now for the foreseeable future.
Yep. And the fact that Dzingel was picked off waivers by San Jose, which clears another million, about $1.1 million, which they could have buried anyways. But I think it opens up another player, a standard player contract, which is at this point in time, it's pretty good too. So if they want to acquire multiple assets, they have the room for it. I just think let's not take stock in a guy coming from a last place team. I just like the fact that he's big, he's aggressive. He's played with the top defensemen from their team the last couple of years with Ekman Larson last year and Chychrun as well. So he has some experience there. I just look at him as a possible replacement of Bogosian, who I think they're really missing this year with that physical aspect of it. And shot blocking, penalty killing. I think that there was a lot asking of Liljegren to play that role this year, especially on the PK, and he's not there yet. So I want to see what this guy's got in terms of on the defensive side.
All right, thanks, buddy. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in and listening to 10 Minute Misconduct. Please hit that like button, that subscribe button, drop us a comment down below. We appreciate you tuning in, and we will talk to you next week, hopefully after a couple of Leaf wins.